let them in as they come. But anyways, welcome everyone. So this is our third webinar in our Texas Prescribed Fire webinar series. And tonight it's the Designing a Prescribed Fire Program for Your Ranch. Really excited for this one. Two of our guest speakers, Marcy Epperson and Sam Jaton, two people I greatly admire and have been on fires with, and our fellow landowners in Central Texas. And I think they have really great perspectives on, both using fire as a land management tool, and then we'll have some, just really good experience, incorporating fire into their, management plan on their ranch. And they have a lot going on, and so I really appreciate their time. And yeah, again, I just can't wait to dive into this. And what we'll do is we'll hear from both of them, and then at the end we're gonna open it up to a Q&A. And anything that comes up, please fire away questions in the chat, and we'll knock them out one by one. But anyways, thank you, Marcy and Sam, for joining us.
Pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely. So just a quick overview. This does not do y'all justice, but just a little bit of background. And if y'all would like, Sam, Marcy, if y'all want to just briefly introduce yourselves, kind of maybe a bit about your properties that you manage, maybe how long you've been, using fire, the prescribed burn associations you're a part of, that'd be great.
Well, I'll kick it off. I'm in southern Kimball County, and so the land here, if I were a much younger man and my shoulder was still good, I could probably throw a rock far enough to hit Marcy and William over in Edwards County. The land here in southern Kimball County is much like that in Edwards County, where rocky, cedar-covered, shallow-soiled hill country. But we're doing our best to bring it back to its former glory. It's been abused for years because ranch and Angora goats bought these ranches out here. And so now Marcy and I are both trying to recover from years and years of hard use that paid for the land. I am with the Upper Llanos Prescribed Burn Association. I hold several offices with that. We serve a 30-mile radius around Junction. And I've been burning on this ranch since about 2008, so closing in on 20 years now. And it has certainly made a difference on this property and those of my neighbors who have adopted the same philosophies.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. Marcy?
So I am with the Cinco chapter of Edwards Plateau Prescribed Burn Association, which encompasses Cinco, meaning 5 counties: Edwards, Sonora, Sutton, Sliker, and Val Verde County. And we are a little late on getting started burning due to so many years of drought, but we started really actively in 2017, but it takes a few years to get each burn ready to go. So kind of where I am. And we're also members of ULPBA, thanks to Sam saying, hey, did you know you fit within this on this certain ranch? So very thankful, because Cinco is struggling a little bit right now with active membership. And I don't know what we would do without ULPBA when we get ready to burn. They're showing up for us in a big way. So thanks, Sam.
Awesome. Thank y'all. So first we'll jump into some of Sam's slides he has ready, and is going to give a kind of a quick presentation. And Sam, please take it away.
Well, that's, why we burn. That's a good question, because it hasn't been that long ago when the practice has been frowned upon, and I probably was one of those. I mean, I grew up fighting fire, and it took some convincing. Butch Taylor and I are good friends now, but he probably wanted to throw rocks at me for the heckling that I did for him back in the day, listening to some of his presentations. But, Butch is the granddaddy of fire in Texas. He's what got it started over at the experiment station, and branched out into those counties that Marcy is talking about now. And it wasn't easy for him, but he convinced a lot of us that this was the right thing to do, and I'm glad he did. If you go to that next slide, David, this this is what we're looking at. And this is right across the fence from me out here. And, I have to talk about wildfire. I mean, it's not altogether altruistic, my reasons for burning, but one of the things that we do for the community is we give firefighters a place to fight fire. And the picture you're looking at, that's not a place to fight fire. That's a place to get people injured or killed. And when your local firefighters try to get into that mess when a wildfire is going through it. If you look at the next one, you'll see why I hate cedar so much. That's dormant season, but you see the grass where the cedar isn't. And as you start to look under those cedar trees, you'll see that the grass just ain't no more. And I call it the green desert. It's beautiful. It's green. People from East Texas like to come out to the hill country. They say it's always so green here, but the green that we've got here is not the good kind of green, because it takes care of itself and only itself, and nothing else can manage to grow. Next picture shows, same thing, back off. There's a road, there's grass, plenty of grass. Look what happens when you hit the cedar break. All of a sudden, there's no forage production, nothing to eat. And my wildlife people, they love cedar because it's a place for deer to hide, and I cannot argue with that. I like to have some cedar for the goats to get into. I like to have cedar for the deer to disappear into, but folks, they've got to eat. And if all you've got is cedar, yeah, they're hiding in there, but all they're eating is what comes out of your corn feeder, and that's not enough. The next one, please, David. Yeah, and this is we're a fire enthusiast, and we sell it and we sell it, and we go everywhere like tonight trying to explain to people why fire is such a good thing. And I think that sometimes we tend to be a little bit overzealous in our presentation. I get people that come out here and they've bought a small place out here in the hill country, and they've gone and talked to the contractor, and it's going to cost $358 an acre to clear that land. And they say, hey, why don't we just run a fire through it? But fire won't overcome 30 years of neglect. Fire is a maintenance tool. It's what the Native Americans used it for. And once you've neglected the land for that long, you're going to have to clear it, and then use fire as to keep it open. But to say that you're going to come in here with a cedar break like the one I showed you with that house to begin with, and light a match and clear that out, that just ain't going to happen. And fire does some wonderful things. I mean, it brings in plant species that you've never seen before, that you haven't seen in 50 years. All of a sudden they pop up again. Fire does all sorts of things, but what it won't do is it's not going to clear out a big 30-year-old cedar break. It does mean that once you do it, you don't have to do it over and over and over again. And I've got a little speech on that in a minute. You're looking here, that fire was done in 2014. That is 12 years ago, and it's remained. I have not gone back and had to burn that again. But what I want to show you here, this was a hot August fire. It was up around 100 degrees the day that we did this. We had a good wind. It was a great fire. And 3 days after we did it, we got 2.5 inches of rain. So everything about it was wonderful. But I wanted you to see, even with that fire, even with it getting a run, the parts that I had cleared, it did a wonderful job in. But once it hit that cedar break, you can see it gets in there about 50 to 100 feet, and end of story. And now it'll crawl around in there and make you go back and watch it for days and weeks, but it won't do a good job of clearing out cedar once it gets that big. I want to point out here, this is kind of how I want my land to look. I want there to be open, and I want there to be some cover for game species. And time and time again, I drive past this, I have deer out in here grazing, and boom, beeline back into that cedar again. So I see why people like their cedar. Like everything else, it may not be totally bad, but everything in moderation, huh? Now here it comes, folks. This is where I tell a story in order to tell a story. What got me into fire. My eureka moment. When I was a high school teacher, I told the kids about Archimedes. Archimedes lived about 200 years BC, and he was the designated king smart guy in Greece. And the king thought that he was given a bar of gold to his crown maker, and he sent it off, and the crown would come back, and he wanted to know, thought the guy was cheating him, and he wanted Archimedes to figure out whether that whole bar of gold was in that crown or not. Well, they didn't have any way of measuring irregular objects, so Archimedes went home, and most of you know the story. He sat down in the bathtub overflowed, and he found out how to do volume by displacement. What you might not know is that when he did that, he jumped up out of the bathtub and went running naked through the streets shouting, "Eureka, Eureka." And I later found out that Eureka means I found it, I found it. And so we had a naked man running through the street going, "I found it, I found it." And I hope he would get arrested today. Sam Jeton had his Eureka moment, but not without the naked part. And we can all be a little thankful for that, I think. But my Eureka moment came. You show the next slide, David. This is my friend Lewis Allen's property. And I'll back up a little bit. I'm sitting here on a bulldozer south of the house, and I'm wondering what's going to give up first, the bulldozer or me. And I'm getting beat up, doing this thing I've already cleared before, and my dad has cleared it before that. And I come back to the house, and I'm all disgusted with getting beat around in those rocks by this in this dozer, trying to get rid of this cedar that I've done before, and he's done before me. And I'm telling him, how frustrated I am. And he looked at me and he said, Sam, he said, if we do 200 acres of clearing on this ranch every year, it'll take us 20 years to be done, and we'll have full-grown cedars where we started all over again. And that was my experience. We weren't getting anywhere. We would clear it, and we'd go clear something else, but then in 2 or 3 years, we're having to go back and clear what we'd already cleared before, and we can't make any progress doing that. Then one fine day, out of the blue, my friend Lewis Allen, who has a ranch about 15 miles away from me, same type of country that we have, he called me up one day and he said, "Hey, Sam, we're doing a prescribed burn at the ranch today." It was in the middle of the summer. It was in July. He said, "Could you come over and help me?" And so, Lewis and I have been friends for a lot of years. We take turns insulting each other. It's great fun for us. And so I went over to help Lewis that day, and he stuck a drip torch in my hand, and I looked at his ranch, and I want you to look at his ranch here. Now, Lewis, he hasn't discovered skid steers or bulldozers yet. Lewis has cleared his ranch with a steel chainsaw. This is what he's done, and he's kept it open by using fire. And if you'll look at his property right here, I don't think I need to tell you where the property line is. Lewis has done similar to what I wanted to do here. He's opened up much of his land to forage. He's left some cedar in there. So my Eureka moment came that day. If Lewis Allen could do this with a chainsaw and keep it open and make progress on his ranch, then maybe Sam Jeton needed to learn to do a little prescribed fire. So that's what lit the fire under me. That's what sent me to burn school. That's what got me to burn it on my own property. This is our property out here. You'll see what I'm up against. I think you can see where my property. This was right after another August fire in 2016. You can see my neighbor to the north. I will never be done trying to get rid of cedar because there's just a constant seed source right across the fence from me. So I'm doing the best that I can for my land, and I would like to get my neighbor to do the same. But I don't have any control over what my neighbor does. But I have made great progress on this property by using mechanical removal of juniper and then following it up with fire. Another view of a burn that we did in 2023. This was after several EQIP programs. I'm starting to make my country look like Lewis Allen's country. He had a head start on me. But you can see here how we've done some clearing. We've run a fire through it. We're getting a little bit of recovery. You can see that green down there. Got the little cedar break in the draw that for the game to hide. This is my idea of what I would like my property to look like. Same song, second verse, another drone shot, same pasture. A lot of people now. This one right here, this is another fence line here. This was a winter burn, and we've already started the recovery. But you see what I'm dealing with on my neighbor's property. I bulldozed a right of way to build a fence, and that's what we run into. I used this particular photo I took for fire departments because I asked my VFD guys, who are usually not for fire, if we have a wildfire, which side of this fence do you want to try to fight that fire on? You want to be on the right side of this fence, looking at that where you can move your trucks around and knock your rear end down out on a stump somewhere, or do you want to try to get inside that cedar break with flames over your head, putting your men and your equipment in terrible danger, the way I see it? I wanted to also show this for the difference between summer and winter burns. You see that this winter burn did kill a lot of cedar, but you see that it left a lot of cedar too. For many people, that's what they want. I want to do more with less, and so I am a summer burn guy, and I'll talk to you in just a second about the difference between those two processes. But this is kind of what you can expect to see. That had a good fuel load. We ran fire through it. We killed lots of young cedars coming out. We left a lot of cedar behind, and that's my experience with winter burns. Okay, David wanted me to talk about my management plan, and I don't know that I'm anything to model after. I clear the land mechanically, and I follow with 5 to 10 year burn intervals. I would like to burn this entire ranch in 7 years in order to have it burned in 10 years, because I can guarantee you that you're not going to be able to burn at least 3 out of those 10 years, whether it's weather, whether it's deferral, whether you're overstocked. There's all sorts of reasons that are going to stop you from burning, weather being probably one of the biggest ones. It's either too dry or it's too wet. It's hard to find that Goldilocks moment. I like to use livestock. The goats are great. When my grandfather had goats on this ranch, and I mean, he had an animal unit to every 6 acres. We try to have an animal unit to 35 or 40 acres. But when he had that many goats on the place, we didn't have a cedar problem because they ate the young junipers when they came up. And so goats are a real good management tool to help prevent brushy species or help control brushy species. The downside of goats is coyotes love them, and they're hard to raise, and they're not terribly good mamas. And but they do as well. Fire combined with goats are probably the best 1-2 punch you can do on a land that's covered with brush and juniper. I don't want to overstock because wildlife is very important to this ranch. We do an exotic operation, we do a whitetail operation, we have lease hunters. We think a lot about wildlife and everything we do in management out here. So fortunately, my hunters are in love with what I've done with the ranch. Many would not be. That many would see the opening being too open, not holding enough deer. But folks, in the days of, it used to be the hill country was for people who wanted to just come shoot a deer. We're now doing the QDM or the quality deer management. We want better deer. And if you want better deer, that means you want less deer. And so having more open country, yes, it means less deer, but it also means better fed, bigger antlered, better deer. Okay, so my formulas, I was a math teacher, engineer, so I got to come up with a formula. Mechanical clearing plus prescribed fire is wildfire mitigation, always important, and an opportunity for range improvement. I also need to stress that burning is not an event. It's a process. If you think you're going to burn one time and be done, don't start it. It's not worth it. You're not going to do enough good to justify it. It's a process. There's many people that will tell you you'll have to do 2 or 3 burns on a property before you start to see the real recovery. I don't know about that. On summer fires, I see some really big changes after that. But you must understand that you can't just do a one and done when it comes to fire. Then, of course, rest and rotation and rainfall. and time gives you a chance for recovery and forage improvement. As I said before, you will see forage species that you've never seen on the property before. Where they were, how they were hid, I'm not sure. Butch Taylor will tell us it's because fire has reinvigorated things that were laying there dormant forever and ever. Amen. I don't know, but it works. You'll start to see improved grass species. You'll start to see all sorts of browse species that you've never seen on the property before. Continuous best management practices plus time and rain. I've always got to throw that rain in there as it's raining here today. That's what we struggle with in our part of the world. You'll get increased diversity, better soil health, and much more biomass production. It will improve your cow herds. It will improve your goat herds. It will improve your deer herds. All right, there we go. Clear what I said, what I've repeated. You clear it first mechanically, then you come back next. And next, David, please. You let Lewis Allen light that fire. That was that winter burn that I showed you earlier there. That was a fuel load. That was what we were trying to do. So we'll follow with 3 to 5 years with prescribed fire. People ask me, why do you wait so long after a fire? After you've had equipment in a pasture, at least where we are here, in the amount of rainfall we get, it tears up the duff layer. And even though your bunch grasses will recover, if you don't have that duff layer to carry a fire, it takes a heck of a wind to push it. So you're going to have to wait 2 or 3 years for that duff layer to rebuild itself, even though your grass species have rebounded in a year or less. So you're going to have to wait that long for a fire to carry well to do with. So for here, this is the magic number, 3 to 5 years. About 3 years, the little cedars that you planted now have popped through. You're going to kill them. The cedars that you missed are now showing up. You're going to get them. You're going to clear out the brush that you've scattered everywhere, because we try not to pile it unless it's close to the edge. It just does too much damage to the soil to get that much heat on it. But if you scatter it out, that makes cages for grasses to and shade for grasses to improve. And then you run a fire through it, and you've got that savanna that we've all been trying to get for years and years and years. Yes. Yes. I like to get a cedar before it's that big, but boy, we like to see that burn. You're not going to see cedar crown like that until you get a leaf moisture content below 70%. But when you do, you know you've done some good. It's a little butt puckering the first time that you see something like that happening. I'll be honest with you, but after you've done it for a while, you're going, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Another little thing that I need to, this is going to hurt some people's feelings too. This is some scrubby live oak in an overgrazed pasture out here, and I want you to see where cedar starts. Cedar starts where birds land. Lewis Allen's grandmother called them cedar shitting robins. That's what lands in those trees. That's what plants those, and you'll see that. So when you grow the fine fuel, the grass, and that pasture certainly open enough to do that. When you run that fire through that, those ladder fuels from that cedar, if it's dry enough to kill that cedar, it's going to climb up and it's going to crown in your live oaks, and you're going to knock that crown back down to the ground. And that doesn't look pretty, but it keeps deer alive. David, if you'll show me the next one, you're going to see some recovery here. This is shinnery, which shinnery pops back almost the day after you burn. It comes back fast. Live oak does not come back quite so fast. It takes 3 or 4 years for the live oak to come back. But this kind of stuff deer can eat. When it grows up into a tree, until it drops that acorns, that tree hasn't done you any good at all. You've gotten no browse out of it. Your deer have gotten nothing out of it. The next one, the next slide is some live oak that I'll be honest with you, I mismanaged that. That fire was done in 2016. I didn't put goats on it. It's on the west end of the ranch. Too many predators over there. I lose too many goats if I let them go that far over to the west side of the ranch. So I didn't get this browsed back down again as it was growing, and it's kind of gotten away from me. That said, in all the years of drought we've had, I have seen drought back in the 80s when we lost deer. I have not lost any deer to drought, because even though this is not the best forage, that they can eat upon. It does have some protein value and it keeps them alive. If they don't have this, they eat cedar. Cedar is bad for them. It's hard on their stomach lining. It's hard on the inside lining of their mouth. And they are very unhealthy and they eventually starve to get with a full belly of cedar. They do eat cedar. They will eat cedar. Won't say that they don't, but it's not going to do them any good. This will keep them alive in times of extended drought. All right, now I'm going to get preachy. Summer or winter burn. Both have their place. And I think people starting out need to do winter burns. It's just easier to manage. It's easier on your canopy. If your live oak canopy is important to you, it's not going to take down as much of your live oak canopy. It's easier on your crew members. It's usually cold in January and February, and a fire feels good. You have a shorter post-burn observation. Most of the time with a winter fire, you can walk away from it with 72 hours. Unless you have really bad winds, it's going to burn itself out in about 3 days. You should, if you're burning in January and February, have some March, April, May rains, and all of a sudden you've got regrowth. Everything's looking green and pretty like a golf course. And it does give you more opportunity to get a north wind. If you've got a gritchy neighbor on your north side that you need to burn with a north wind, that's probably going to have to be a winter burn. The bad part about winter burns, and this is what I hate, and Marcy has experienced it, we all have, the weather kills you. You'll have a burn scheduled for Wednesday and everything is perfect on Monday night, and then on Tuesday the weather forecast changes and all of a sudden you've got to call all your people and tell them burns off, burns on, burns off, burns on. It's hard to find weather past 2 or 3 days, and that's hard when you're trying to line up people to come help you do a burn. It doesn't clean up the slash as well. If you've got push cedar, you're probably not going to get all of that. Some you will, but much you won't. And you're going to have a shorter interval between burns. If you're going to do winter burns, you really need to be on that 3 to 5 year schedule instead of that 5 to 10 year schedule. Next, we'll talk about the summer burns. Summer burns are much more reliable. Weather forecasts hold for extended periods. In the summer, you can probably pick a day 2 weeks out and tell your crew to come because it's going to be the same wind speed, the same direction, the same humidity day after day after day, which is probably going to be hot and dry, but it doesn't change as bad as it does in that January, February time frame. It has a much bigger effect on woody species and cactus. Just does. It's a longer interval between burns. You saw that one that I showed you where the fire had run into the cedar break. That we're looking at over 10 years on that fire, and you're not going to get that with a winter burn. It does clean up the slash. You'll clean up most of the slash in the unit on a summer burn. The bad part about a summer burn, it's much harder on your crew. I mean, if you're next to a fire and it's 100 degrees, you're not enjoying that very much. It's more disruptive to your live oak canopy. Even just the heat, even if you don't have ladder fuels climbing up in there, I have noticed that the heat will defoliate live oaks. And now Bob Brotman calls the live oak the most overrated shrub in the hill country. But some people love them. I like a good oak tree too, and I like the acres that they drop. I like a pretty oak tree, but let's face it, folks, much of our oaks are just motts, and they're not pretty. They're just not. The change in the AM/PM relative humidity, which drives fire behavior, it can be drastic. You can start the day where you're in 80%, 90%, and by the end of the day, you may be down in the 20s or even the teens. That's something you really need to pay attention to your weather on a summer burn. And you can handle that if you're prepared for it, but you can't let that sneak up on you. But you've got a longer recovery. It's harder on your country on those hot summer fires. And then you've got what I call iffy follow-up precipitation. If you should have fresh shorn goats in the pasture in August, and the rain should come to try to kill your goats, but you can't count on rain in August, and you can't count on rain in September, and you certainly can't count on rain in the past several years. And the other thing, now this is the part that I hate about them, much, much, much longer post-burn observation. I'm having to circle that same patch over and over again, day after day. Generally, I'm not through with a burn, and it hasn't quit smoking on a summer burn until 8 or 9 days after the burn. That's a long time to look at the same deal over and over again, puckering your butt because you just saw smoke and flames go up in the middle of the burn unit. You hope it's in the middle of the burn. All right. All right. You're interested in prescribed fire. How do you do it? Well, the simplest and the easiest method is to hire a commercial certified prescribed burn professional. They're trained. They have crews. Their insurance takes all the liability off of you. It's great. It's great, but it's not great in my part of the wood because we just don't have any. We don't have people. I won't say we don't have any. We have very few that will come out to the hill country to do a prescribed fire for you. We have some that will, and if you want to know one, that's about all I've got now to recommend to you. But that's the downside. There just aren't many of them. But it does work for people who are not residents on their property, because if you're going to use a burn association, and that's a wonderful tool because we have those everywhere. They're popping up everywhere. They've got people that have done burning. Burn associations are great, but you got to help. And if you live in Dallas or if you live in Houston and you can't take off work, come down here and help with 2 or 3 burns, those people aren't going to show up for your burn. That's just how it works. That's the trade-off. And so some people have gotten around that by having a local take care of their property and go help on these burns. And the burn association people are willing to work with you, but they're not willing to go do a burn for you. NRCS and Parks and Wildlife, I used NRCS. NRCS really, they used to be the go-to people, not so much anymore. They're too young. They don't really want to do fire anymore. But they can write you a burn plan, and with some arm twisted. The best has been Parks and Wildlife so far. They've got the problem with Parks and Wildlife. They got 4 guys to take care of the whole state. Each one of those guys takes care of over 60 counties. But they will write you a burn plan, come help you with your burn. They can't do it over and over and over and over again. Their idea is to come help you learn how to do it. So they're going to come help you once, twice, maybe 3 times, and hope you figure out how to do it and can do it on your own and put together your own crew. I strongly urge everyone to go to a TDA burn school. Texas Department of Agriculture. Morgan offers one of those online. I'm not an online guy, and they have the in-person ones, much more good for people of a certain age that don't learn as well as these youngsters do online. But there is so much technical information. You will be better prepared to use fire because you'll understand the behavior. They'll tell you what to do, what not to do, and there's a lot of not to do that you're going to learn by experience. But you've got to get to training. It's 3 days out of your life, and it's a world of information. And then lastly, go to as many prescribed fires as you can. Just watching a fire, participating. I have people that are 78 years old, and they'll tell me, I can't help on a fire. And I tell people, if you can ride in a truck and talk on a radio, you are helpful on a fire, because mostly what we need is people going around looking and finding trouble. You don't have to get out and stomp out the fire. All you got to do is call on the radio, and we'll be there in a heartbeat. But you got to go. You got to learn. And yes, everyone can be a help on a fire. Okay, I think that's it, David.
Yes, that will do it. Sam, thank you so much. I think I speak for everyone when I say we're both laughing, interested, entertained, all the above by everything you went over. And yeah, again, I can't thank you enough. And I love hearing you talk about fire. So really appreciate it. At this
Me
point,
too.
Marcy, yeah, if
I
you wanna take over, we'll go from here.
I think he covered it all already. I don't think we need to go any further. I have a lot Sam really is way more in depth than what I have, but we are on the same page, Sam. Lots of the same things are in our program. So, um, we're a family operation. My husband and I work together to operate this ranch. He's the main manager. He's an owner operator. It's we're fifth generation in Edwards County. Um, and so we are really striving to improve. And as Sam said, this ranch was abused for many, many, many years by his family who were trying to pay for the land and make a living. So we have the opportunity now to sort of correct some of that. So that's where we're at. We don't always get everything right, but we try. So this first slide is just kind of where we initially start. Besides, being horseback or in the pasture with livestock, I'm a kind of a map person and I get on Google Earth and say, okay, this is how we can kind of draw out this plan. But let's go to the next slide because that's where it really starts. For us, and I don't know how many of you maybe manage a ranch for someone else or if it's a family operation, but I'm going to discuss it from the family operation standpoint. For us, it's critical that all of our family is on board. And when I say family, it's just our family unit of my husband, me, and our two sons. We all work together on it in different ways. I went to Burn School in 2010 and became a certified prescribed burn manager. It took many years because of drought, but I believe in 2017, I'm not sure exactly, but Burn School, as Sam said, please go. This is the hill I will die on. I think it is so important to learn about fire behavior and just to have that basic broad knowledge of everything about it and planning a burn, from safety to fuels to relative humidities and such and so on. As Sam said, I feel like it's super important to volunteer with prescribed burn associations and experienced crews, excuse me. You just cannot replace the experience that you will get by going with someone such as Sam or Butch Taylor or Morgan, whoever it might be with. If you have the opportunity to go be on a burn with some of those really experienced crews, it is highly, highly worth your time. And back to the PBA, if like us, you're going to depend on volunteers to help you burn, then you need to go volunteer your time and help other people accomplish their goals and objectives as well. There's a lot, as far as a working ranch is concerned, from my perspective, and I know Sam is the same way. There's a lot of, when you think about systems thinking, there's a lot of different cogs and wheels. And when you need to rotate all your livestock out of a certain pasture to burn it, to allow fuel to grow, number one, to burn it, number two, and then allow it to have rest and recovery, that means you have to find places for that livestock for maybe a very long time. And especially if drought will come into the picture. It's not if, it's when or all the time. So there are a lot of management considerations. And for us, we're like Sam, we also have an exotic wildlife operation. So we have animals that cannot necessarily be moved. So that's another consideration in how you will set up those burns for the future. Um, and that, talking about, when I say fire infrastructure, I'm talking about roads and fire guards. Those things can take months to years to get those set up. So it is a long-term investment of time and money. And I would say, as far as goals are concerned, to start small, if that helps you get started. I'm of the belief that any fire is better than no fire. So if you're a smaller place and you just start looking at burning an acre, burn the acre first. If that helps you learn a little bit, then go on to bigger steps if that's what you need to do. But it doesn't have to be I you know that burn I showed a second ago. You can skip to the next slide, David. It doesn't have to be a big whole pasture. But as far as setting these up, uh this that red fire guard is a 300-foot wide fire guard. And that was done with funding through Texas State Soil and Water Conservation Board, I believe is the correct name, but maybe not. But that is, you can see it from Google Earth now. I think there's another slide a little bit later on, but wait, just stay there for a second. The point of that is that's cleared, like Sam was saying, there's no way to burn that safely or successfully without something cleared. But that's there now for the next 100 years if my kids so choose, and maybe grandkids in the future, I don't know. If they so choose to maintain that with fire, that's going to be good to go for generations. And I think that's key in setting these up, is thinking about very long term and setting up a structure that is usable and easily usable for maintenance burns, because it's I believe Butch said, Morgan, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, 15 years is the approximate cedar germination to mature cedar break, and 20 years top. So it's really important to consider maintenance. The dozing and the mulching are all great short term, but you're just going to be doing it over and over like a big sink of dirty dishes. So so how we set it up, we decide where it needs fire, we visit it, we talk about it. We do a lot of consultation with Texas Parks and Wildlife, and lately with Quail Forever. They have some great funding for our county. And if that's something any of you in those OPJB counties, I don't, that's y'all tell me what the name of that program is. The Oaks and Prairies Joint Venture. There's lots of great funding to help you get fire on the ground, which is great on small or big projects. Seek that out and use it. They've got that money to spend, get it and use it for fire guards. Dozing the fire guards, that just is, Sam can tell you on my burn this spring, I call the guy, yes, we'll be there in a week. Well, 3 weeks later, they weren't there. And then he had operator troubles. The guy had family problems. And then it rained, ice storm, machinery breakdown. So our fire, instead of taking place in late January, early February, I believe got pushed to the end of March or April. I can't remember, but it caused us to not get the second burn unit done next to it right after the first one. So now all that money we spent on dozing those fire breaks, it's now rained 12 inches, which I'm not complaining, but that's a lot of money with what is going to be a grown-up fire guard. So consider those things. You need a written burn plan. Go back to burn school. They will teach you how to write a burn plan. That is just absolutely another hill I will die on. Sam had a problem with, it wasn't Sam's problem. It was someone in Kendall County did a quote unquote prescribed burn that escaped. They didn't even have a written burn plan. And that caused a lot of black eyes for the burn associations and prescribed fire. Please don't just go out and think you're going to do a burn without going to burn school and having experience and writing I mean, you need a written burn plan. They are very specific as to this prescription for goals and objectives for the property to be burned. We consult pre-burn with lots of other practitioners on our burns. I try to always have an experienced person come look at it. Sam came to one. It's a long way for him to drive, so I hate to ask him, but typically I get Wesley Evans, who is our regional fire coordinator, to come and look over it. Wesley's not afraid of anything. He always says it's okay, and it generally is, but it's good to have other eyes on your burn to see if there's potential little problems that you might overlook. And they are there. Sometimes it's easy to forget or not see something when you're looking at something every day. Then set the date, prepare the crew, gather equipment, test your equipment. I was helping on a research burn at the station about 10 years ago, and a pump quit working that I was using we were wet lining. And somebody was burning in front of me, and that I've never been so terrified in my whole life. It wasn't very big, and it was safe, but you don't want your equipment to fail on burn day in the middle of a burn. Okay, next slide, David. I kind of went into this a little bit earlier, but if you have a business operation on your ranch, how will fire affect daily operations? And there's some of these effects are cascading. For example, us not burning push some rotation somewhere else off by 3 months. And if you can't raise livestock on 1,000 acres, let's say for a year or 2 years, it takes those are considerations where your income expenses are going to have to be adjusted on using fire. It can be done, it's just part of it. Pasture deferment, drought and rain cycles. As I mentioned a minute ago, delays in fire infrastructures with all the trouble we had, that just caused a lot of problems. And then possible, Sam mentioned this as well, possible pushback from seasoned lease hunters. We had some hunters quit, which didn't hurt our feelings, but some of them are not going to understand our management goals and what we have to do to succeed with those. So we have other hunters who are in areas that we're burning, and I think they are seeing the light and how when you go over there now and it's clear and there's turkeys everywhere and quail everywhere, I think that's kind of eye-opening for people as opposed to the cedar break that it was. So next slide, David. Our goals and objectives, much like Sam's, enhanced rangeland production for livestock and wildlife. We want better nutrition. That high protein right after a fire is really great. Higher biodiversity, better habitat all around. Reduce extreme wildfire hazards. We're pretty close to the city of Rock Springs, and a fire from the wrong direction could really cause problems for our little community. And then restore and maintain the grassland savanna and woodland savanna that is historically accurate here. Okay, David. Okay, this is Cinco chapter, and there might be some Upper Llano people, probably. You were probably there, Sam. But we burn with our family and employees, close friends on small burns, and we'll probably be doing a little bit more of that for maintenance burns. Then on larger burns, local burn associations, and then, as I mentioned, Wesley Evans, our Quail Forever guy. And then we welcome volunteers. And I like to, I had somebody I put with Sam this past time. If you want to come and learn about burning, well, let me know. And then I'll put you with somebody like Sam or Dr. Taylor or whoever might be here that you can ride around with and really get a lot of bang for your buck for the day. We prep our units, choose the dates and hope that the weather coordinates so that we burn in prescription. But, if we get to a burn even if the forecast was to be in prescription, if the day starts out and it's not going to be in prescription, we will call it off. And that's just the bottom line. We will not burn under to either out of prescription or under unsafe conditions for liability reasons. Okay, this is a summer burn. It didn't want to burn. I called Sam every day for 2 weeks. And there was a lot of death that had not been burned for, it was basically a cedar break that burned in there for 2 weeks. It just kind of smoldered around in the dust, and then it would catch a dead cedar tree on fire, crown in the afternoon, and then the live oak tree next to it would catch leaves on fire, and they would helicopter over to the next mott. So that can happen. That's a lot of every afternoon I had a little panic attack, but it was well inside the fire guard. But make sure your doze lines are to mineral earth. Use wide fire guards. I just am a big believer in that. I did not have a wide enough fire guard on the south side of this. I thought the south wind would push it in, and it did not. And that became a 2 week problem child for me. So watch the weather like a hawk. It kept raining every afternoon, even with this burning, and it still wasn't enough to put it out. So troubles will arise. You just have to be ready for them. Okay, this is my 21-year-old son, and he's grown up to be a pyro, so I figured that that's a parenting success. Next. Google Earth. You can see that 300-foot fire guard in this picture, and then I put some extra lines that I had dozed in there to kind of break that up a little bit, and I'll probably go back and push that some more. But this is post burn on that unit that burned for 2 weeks. You can see it's still really thick, and but it cleaned it out a lot. And that fire guard is in desperate need of a maintenance burn. It's been 9 years, and it is on the table for this summer if the weather cooperates. Next. Final thoughts. It is not easy, but it's not hard. It just takes time and patience, a good team. Make your plan, be safe, light the fire when the time is right. Don't be afraid. Even if everybody's driven to your unit, maybe 2 hours away, don't be afraid to call it off. Everybody's going to understand. And then the land and the animals will thank you. And that's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marcy. Just like Sam, I always enjoy your perspectives, and I love the family operation that y'all have. And if anyone's met her son, he really is quite the pyro. Seeing him with the little flamethrower on a prescribed burn is quite the sight. But yeah, thank you so much. And then before we jump into the question side of thing. We had another speaker originally lined up, but he's working some of the county elections, and so he got pulled off of the webinar. But he did send me some information and some slides on his operation, and so I'll go over it just real quick and try and do it justice. But the speaker was going to be Brian Wright. He is the president of the Central Basin Prescribed Burn Association, and he manages the White Ranch in Mason, Texas. So it's approximately 9,400 acres, a multi-generational family ranch, and they do everything from running cattle, hunting operations. They have their grazing plan, their fire plan, and it's a whole mix of things, as you can imagine. But he's done a lot of really good work there as the manager, incorporating fire. And so what he sent me was kind of an overview of some of the challenges that they looked at initially. So like you can see here, so severe overgrazing, 25 plus years of overgrazing, and kind of, beating the heck out of the land, led to that collapse of their forage system. So, hard crust soil across most of the ranch, wildlife depletion. So there are deer, one deer per 27 acres, and then seeing, quail numbers decline, bird populations in general decline as well. Um, and so, what do they do to fix it? He started, their plan. So they got rid of a bunch of their cattle, reduced those numbers, and then, once the land started to recover, they brought in prescribed fire. So they've done, 5 burns as of late, totaling 1,600 acres since the last fall. And I was out on his place right after they did a 600-acre burn, and then he was generous enough to open up his place for us to do a fire field day in Mason County, where we got a bunch of community members out there, and they were able to participate on a burn for the first time. And anyway, so they coupled fire with rotational grazing. And working with those agency partners, Texas Parks and Wildlife, U.S. Fish Wildlife Services, AgriLife, NRCS. So he's done a really good job of bringing in, partners from around the state to, get, advice or help on a burn. And what that's looked like is, he's been really trying to hammer his prickly pear, that's overtaking the property, and then B, knocking back that brush, trying to restore it into that, kind of woody savanna that, we've all talked about already. But, you know, what you're seeing here is, immediately after the fire, you're seeing that initial regrowth, and then, that quote on the bottom, just with it being the most, cost-effective way to manage the landscape. Once you compare, the cost of running dozers every 5 years, or constant chemical application, if you can maybe do that to initially clear your property, and then continually bring fire through there, it's going to save you a lot of money in the long run. But here you're seeing just that regrowth, where that fire had rolled through, and then that increase in forage production. So before 2014, most spots were less than 1,000 pounds of acre of forage production. And then today he's seeing across the ranch, closer to 5,000 plus pounds per acre in forage production. And, I wish he was here to speak a little bit more in detail, but it's at least a cool exercise to see that regrowth, and, see his efforts, come to fruition here. Another really cool thing about his property, that he manages, is they're doing a study on the Texas horned lizard, at the White Ranch. And so TCU, Texas Christian University, they're the ones leading that study, and they're seeing those numbers are constantly growing, and a lot of that is attributed to both just him as a ranch manager, but his prescribed fire regime. And then you're seeing statistics on that white-tailed deer recovery, where before, if it was one deer per 27 acres, now they're seeing one, or having a rate of one deer per 10 acres. Quail, their annual surveys confirm that their populations are more than doubling. He always talks about how many more coveys of quail he's seeing and hearing, just as times passed. And that's same goes for the turkey and songbirds. Just all of his bird populations. He's had some studies done, or some wildlife surveys, and he's really seeing that the birds specifically are making, vast recovery, on that property. And, the more grass, more seed, more cover, and more insects, it makes sense when you think about it like that. And then again, that Texas horned lizard, where it used to be really sparse, they're finding nesting or breeding populations, and they're it's like a little wildlife refuge. And that just speaks to how well he's managed their property. And it of course helps that he's the president and an active member in their Prescribed Burn Association. And so having both those state or federal partners along with the PBA, he's able to utilize fire a lot more than most people. And that quote at the bottom, it always makes me laugh, and it couldn't be more true, where if you burn and you get rain, that recovery is going to be, so smooth and so beautiful, and you're going to look like a genius to anyone who sees your property shortly after. But if you don't receive that rain, that recovery, of course, is going to be delayed, and it may look ugly for a little while, but as soon as that rain comes, whether it's a week after the burn, a year after the burn, that recovery will start. But I've always liked that quote. Again, I wish he could have been here to join us and do a better job going into detail on his property. But I do want to thank him for sending over those slides and his contribution. But now we have Sam and Marcy here. I would love to open this up to questions. So if anyone in the chat wants to drop a question for them, now is the time. I remember we had one from Pat McDowell. It was, can you address controlling honey mesquite with fire? So if y'all have any thoughts on that,
No,
love to hear
I'm
them.
sorry. I'm sorry that you're going to suppress it. The redberry cedar, redberry juniper, and mesquite are the two quickest things to go take the canopy down with fire. But both of those are resprouters. We had that hot oasis fire that burned 10,000 acres in Kimball County in 2011. I mean, the mesquite was already putting back out again before we even had rain. It's remarkably resilient because its root system goes so deep into the soil. All you can do with mesquite is suppress it. It's going to take chemical, most likely, or some really, really deep grubbing, mechanical treatment to actually kill it. Sorry.
I'm gonna agree with that. Morgan, was it the Prairie Project that did the fuel loading burn plots at the station to try to burn the mesquite?
Sort of. It was a study that preceded it, but they all kind of fed
Okay.
into one another.
Well,
But yes, ma'am, you're right.
okay, I helped Dr. Stearns do those burns, and then I've been around long enough to see, and it doesn't do anything. As some people say, fire just makes mesquite angry. Um, we have one mesquite flat on this entire ranch, and we're not big into spraying anything, but I'm with Sam on that. I think my husband already has some plans going forward. It's under control now, but there's some that needs to be controlled. I think we'll do some really very specific targeted spraying of it and then try to keep it handled after that. But it's horrible.
The rancher in me again. Goats do a number on mesquite. They will eat mesquite and they will tend to control it if you knock it back down again. That said, it takes tremendous numbers of goats to do that, and most people are not comfortable putting that many goats on a pasture because just like fire, when you utilize goats, you have to be careful to hit it hard and get off.
Another question. This one's from Morgan. It's, how quickly are you thinking fire, both wildfire and prescribed fire, as your spring and growing conditions unfold? So when will you get nervous about wildfire with the fuel you're growing? And will that spur some, adaptive decisions for your growing season fires?
We're in a part of the country, David, where Marcy and I like to see grass, and
Yeah.
we're
You
like,
can't enjoy it, Sam. Don't enjoy it for 1 second. You better be thinking about it.
we don't get used to it. We don't get used to it. I will say that, but as I say, I like to be altruistic about it. I like to say that my primary goal is taking care of wildfire fuels. But if I'm honest, that's a secondary deal. When I've got grass enough to do a burn, I'm watching that cedar and I'm watching it grow. I'm pivoting this year. I had another pasture or patch that I was going to burn, and I looked at one that I've done before, and I'm looking at that, and it's got about foot-high cedars. And so now I'm going to grow fuel and pivot over to that one because it needs the attention more quickly. And yeah, I'd like to tell you that we're doing good for wildfire because we're clearing it out where firefighters can fight fires. but to just burn grass for the sake of reducing wildfire fuels, probably don't. Sorry.
No, good answer. It's I am excited about what this spring is going to look like, spring and summer. I'm going to ask you that same question again, though, Sam, in the fall and the winter, and we'll pick up a 2.0 conversation then.
But Morgan, we've been 4 years without spring rains, and so
Yeah, yes,
know,
sir.
it changes you. I mean, it just when you go so long and it's been so difficult that you just want to enjoy what you got for a little while.
Yes, yeah, I hear you, and I will say cheers to that tonight for sure.
The next question was around how do you find a burn association? Marcy in the chat, she sent the link, but the Prescribed Burn Alliance in Texas website, I'd say, is the best place to go. Immediately, there's a tab on the website that will show the burn associations across the state with the contact information for the PBA operating in your area. So I'd go to that website first and foremost, and that should get you in touch with the people around you. Clint Hicks had a question. It was, if a goal is to protect the existing oaks from fire damage during a controlled burn, what would you suggest? What steps could I take?
That is my husband thinks all the oaks should be saved, and I think more should be burned. However, on mature historic oaks, and I'm talking about oaks that are probably a minimum of 18 inches in diameter, really larger, they need to have all the understory removed from them. Absolutely nothing must be left. The duff up around the trunk needs to be cleared away so that duff doesn't burn up to the trunk and burn through that cambium layer. And probably it would be a good idea to clear a pretty wide swath around them because the heat, as Sam said, will damage the leaves. So, but absolutely, if you want to save them, you must clear underneath them, and there must not be any duff because the duff will kill them as well. You might not have a crown fire in it to kill it, but you might kill it with just a little smolder over a week's time. So, yeah, it's a thing.
Also, you can mitigate that somewhat by picking the conditions under which you burn.
Yes,
Burn
absolutely.
with higher humidity and a lower temperature. You're not going to affect your live oak as much. You're also not going to affect your cedar as much. So, you got to just pick your path. You can't put your foot in two different canoes going different directions. So you're going to have to decide what's more important to you: saving the oaks or getting the good kill on your other brushy species.
Yeah, there are some oak trees that I have said on this next burn, and I actually went driving around and said, we need to take some survey tape and decide if there are some oaks that we want to save. We need to send some hand crews in there and clean out around them. Will we get to that? I don't know, but if there's a really big one, that's a possibility. Alan says back burning. Is that Alan Ersch?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah, and he would know. And they have bigger oak trees in Fredericksburg than we do. But it's not necessary. Back burning is not necessarily going to save them in our area. But yeah. Please describe insurance usage. Do you
Well, Morgan's got the paper that's written on that does an excellent
okay.
job.
How about if y'all are okay with it, would y'all describe what kind of insurance that you have burning on your own private property?
Sure. Texas Farm Bureau TAA policy. Farm Bureau, there's only 3, Morgan, that I know of that are still writing hostile fire exclusions in their policies. Germania, Hoheim Prairie, and Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau gives us the most for the least. But really to take advantage of them, you need your house insured with them as well. And they also insure you as you go as a volunteer on other people's burns.
Yes.
But you really need to read Morgan's treatise on liability because it's kind of complicated in Texas. I mean, we've gotten in the last several years some really good liability protections, but in order to avail those, you have to go to burn school. You have to have done your 30 burns. You have to have been the burn boss on 5 burns. You have to have the insurance. You've got to meet all of these standards, and then we'll limit liability. And frankly, that's never been tested in a court. We've got it in the legislature, but we do have protections in that. It's more complicated than I think what we want to get into in the chat this evening. Marcy, who do you use?
I have Texas Farm Bureau. It's TAA stands for Texas Ag Advantage, and the same as Sam. And I don't think Sam carries a CIPVM license.
Do
He
not.
could if he wanted to. I do have it, and when I renew my license, I have to prove that to the state Texas Department of Agriculture. And every year they call me and ask me to, I don't know, I just call my insurance agent and say, give them whatever they need. So, and it's not every year, it's every 2 years that license is up for renewal. But we are very fortunate to have them.
On that TAA policy, you won't find you're protected in there. It is an exception to an exclusion buried in that policy. And we're told that's the way policies are written, but it's
Yeah.
a common person that's not a lawyer is going to have a hard time going, oh yeah, I'm covered.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question in the chat was, how much hog damage and increased wildlife populations do you see on recently burnt ground?
Well, we don't have a lot of hogs. They did.
Or
I don't
axis?
know. The axis, we're mostly high fence, so the axis just moved. They do go back to that area. The hogs, we have predator barb around the entire perimeter of the ranch. So we only have hogs on one little piece, and that's not very often. So I don't know. I mean, there's a little bit of hog activity over there. I didn't really see, but yes, on increased wildlife populations. The turkeys and the quail move in the black the same day. All the wildlife does. They're right there, and there's little green pickings coming up within really 24 hours to 48 hours. So they're all in it. They love it.
It's a big attractant to
Yeah.
2-axis whitetail, turkey, quail, all of those things. Yes. In fact, this year I burned 300 acres in October, and my hunters would sit at a blind that was next to that, and the deer would not come to the corn feeder, but they would see them out grazing on that tender new growth out in the burn unit. So it does attract those. As far as the hogs, we do have a lot of hogs. We hunt them with helicopters. We snare them. We do everything we can to get rid of them, and we will, like the cedar, we'll never be rid of them. I can't see any difference. What the biggest problem with the hogs is my neighbors, because they've got cedar breaks, and the minute we jump a hog, we have learned where they run underneath the fence, and when we jump some hogs, we run the ranger over there to the fence and set up, because they are headed back into that cedar break. So I'll never, because I have cedar breaks surrounding my property, I will never be rid of hogs. I can't say that burning has increased or decreased those hogs. I do know that they don't prefer to be there when they're spotted. They head back to the cedar break.
Next question was, how soon after a fire do you start grazing? Or how soon do you make the decision to graze following a fire?
That is all about nature's recovery. It might be a year and it might be 3 to 6 months, but our growing season, and I'm sure Sam's is the same, is only May, June, July, and August. Um, so if we don't get rains in the growing season, then there's nothing going in there. Maybe it might be a year and a half, but we burned the spring and it's rained and rained and rained. And I could see us potentially, actually, I think we're going to burn that again to try to do a little more since we have two burn units together. But I think we could probably turn livestock in there this fall if we needed to, but we won't because we're going to burn it. But
It's not a time thing here.
it's not a time.
Rain thing.
Yeah.
It's a rain thing plus time. I mean, obviously it's got to rain and you got to give it time to recover. But really, all our NRCS programs, your pasture is deferred for so many months or so many years. But
Yeah.
that doesn't. That's wrong.
No.
Rainfall.
Right.
You can't tell a rancher we're not going to let you back in that pasture until you've had at least 12 inches of rain. Or some pastures we might never be going into.
Now, on the flip side, we put cows in the next day on a pasture that we burned last February because there was a lot of prickly pear and it burned up the prickly pear. And we left them in there 2 weeks and let them munch, munch, munch and clean up that pear. But then we took them right out because anything that didn't burn needed to rest. So,
Does that pear where it becomes, more palatable right after the fire for the
Mhm.
cattle, it or doesn't it like expire or kind of,
Mhm.
sour on it
Yeah.
shortly after?
Yes,
How long do you find that period?
Sam.
10 days and a summer burn.
Yeah.
It's different on a winter burn. A winter burn,
Yeah.
you may be good for 2 or 3 weeks after that burn. But on a summer burn, when it's hot, yeah, you've got uh, 10 days, 2 weeks tops, probably not 2 weeks. But it does do wonders. I mean, you've injured that pear. Now you're going back in and injuring it again. Now, pear isn't easy to kill, and I had one person that described it to me this way. They said, after a burn, prickly pear will put out like you irrigated it. He said, but after 2 to 3 years, come back and look at it again. If you've deferred your pastures and you've grown grass, he said it'll start to get those white spots. It'll start to get sick. For those of us that have used chemical on it before, in the old days with picloram, it took 3 years to kill it with picloram. So I don't know why we would be surprised that it took 3 years for the fire to do the same. It's not an immediate thing. It's going to come back quickly, but if you take care of your pasture, it will have an effect over time.
Right. Question was, can steep topography be burnt?
Yeah. You better be careful though. So we're burning in steep topography. We have a very deep, long river canyon, and that's one of the things about going to burn school is that you will learn that fire multiplies as it burns uphill. So with that and with squirrely winds in the canyons, it can be a little bit tricky. Um, what do you have to say about that, Sam?
I I don't know if you remember Jones in Rock Springs who used to push cedar up at the bottom of those cliffs down there on Hackberry Creek and light it and let it burn to the top, and it would go out when it got to the top of those hills because there wasn't much grass up there. Hog grazed it pretty good. But yes, you're just gonna. It's more difficult. It's more difficult to get
Yeah.
fire guards in that kind of country. Ward Whitworth had a guy that nearly flipped a dozer trying to put in fire guards on those hills. It can be done, and but it's going to be it's tricky. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
How much do you prioritize your relationship with local and county officials?
Well, that's the reason I'm not certified in Kimball County because our county judge is a member of our burn association. So was the one before him, and so was the one before him. I have seen the situation in Sutton County where county governments changed, and they went from allowing burn associations to burn during burn bans to not allowing them. Our county government does allow that, so I've not had the need to become certified because of that. So we have a good relationship with our county government, with our fire department. They don't hate us, but they don't love us.
Yeah. I really work on it. We have a burn friendly judge for now, but our county has changed, just like many counties, especially moving east. And that is why I have my license, is because I feel like, number one, I need to be able to burn during a burn ban to achieve goals and objectives at times. And number two, it's only a matter of one election until we possibly get someone who does not understand the need for prescribed fire or the benefit of it. So I work with them. The last one, I've tried to get our volunteer fire department guys a little more in tune with it, but that's changing. I think with Texas Forest Service changing, they're changing, but they're lagging a little far behind. We could use some better support with volunteer fire departments understanding. And I think the tide is turning with that, especially after the big fire guard in Borger, Texas saved their town. All of those guys at the last Great Plains Fire Summit, what was that, what it was called, Morgan?
Yes,
They were
ma'am.
all there and they were all for it. So that helps.
But we haven't mentioned that in our part of the world, most every burn you're going to do is during a burn ban.
Yeah.
So either you got to be a CIPBM or you've got to have a county government that allows that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Unless I missed it, I think that was all the questions we had thus far. I'll give people kind of a last chance to put in any questions in the chat they have for Marcy, Sam, Morgan, myself, or anyone. But if there are no more questions, I want to give a huge thank you and round of applause to Sam and Marcy, and just again cannot overstate how much I appreciate y'all's time and y'all's perspectives, and sharing stories about your experience and your property with all of us. And then for everyone listening, this was recorded, so we will go ahead and post this on the Prescribed Burn Alliance of Texas YouTube channel. So you can share it with anyone you would like. And then last mention is that this was put on with the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, and our team is grant funded. And so as part of that, we will include a survey in the follow-up email, and we would really appreciate if y'all could fill that out. And that just gives us feedback on what we did right, what we did wrong. It's completely anonymous, but just gathering those metrics really helps us try and tailor more effective programs to our audiences, and hopefully continue to help the fire community, all across all of Texas. But again, thank you so much to Sam and Marcy and everyone for joining us. And if there's nothing else, then we'll go ahead.
There is
one more comment to make,
Yeah.
and we forgot to toot your horn. The lady asked about finding burn associations. If you don't have one in your area and you would like to form one, and you can find people that are willing to do that, we now have a David
You're
Brooke.
the guy. Yeah.
We have a David Brooke that will come help you get organized and set up and bring all the experience that he has from working with all burn associations throughout the state to helping you and your organization get started. Wonderful resource. Thank you, David.
Yes.
Thank you,
There's
Sam.
another
And
question.
yes, let's touch on that from Kip. It says our company has 10 ranches in 10 states and verify along the NWCG standards. Do you know how that would work in Texas?
I think Morgan would be the one to answer that. Aren't you into
Yes, ma'am. Yep. So
Okay.
the burn board, or specifically the Texas Department of Ag certified and insured prescribed burn manager, we accept those NWCG standards for certification. So there's a reciprocity agreement in place. You will still need to fill out the basic application for that, and distinguish which category of license you're looking to achieve. But absolutely, TDA openly acknowledges NWCG and will accept NWCG qualifications. Great question.
Awesome. Thank you, Morgan. Well, if there are no more questions, this is the final call and wrap up. And again, thank you to everyone for joining us, and hope y'all have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Appreciate the interest from
Good
everyone.
night.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Awesome. Thank y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.